This is a poem by Tom Waits. It's called A Dream. Everything is numbered. Everything. There is only a certain amount of everything. Laughs, shaves, skinned knees, babies, tears, steaks, smokes, songs, everything. And maybe at the top of the sky you will find the bottom of a boat, and in it is an unshaven god holding a pole, a line, and a float, and dangling from a golden hook is a blue jewel, the one you dreamed about, and the blue jewel is just like your blue eye, blinking beneath your sleepy eyelids. And then way down the rabbit hole you slide and splash into the sea. And the sun comes up, and you are only 7. Then he pulls you into the boat, and that is heaven.
Says what he wants, but he's so contradicted. He's a man of conviction, but he's never been convicted.
Hello everyone, welcome to the show. My name is Matthew Gosson. This is Man of Conviction. Today on the show I have George Steeves. Not George Reeves, not Rick Steeves, but George Steeves. An actor I met, and this is an interesting guy. He has Aspergers, and he has persevered and made a career for himself. And really a great conversation. It got very political, and we're both a couple of lefties, so that's where that ended up. Let's get right to it. Join me for an interview with George Steeves. I'm here with George Steeves, actor. And I met George at the Table group, or actually he contacted me through this production group that I know about, and was going to do some camera work for you, and I couldn't do it, but we connected, and here you are. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Let's tell everybody about your one-man show, which I saw with my son. Very impressed. Really unique and completely entertaining. So, Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Aspergers.
Yep.
And so, obviously, you have Aspergers.
Yep, I was diagnosed when I was 11 years old in the year of 2000.
And for those that don't know, maybe you can explain briefly what Aspergers is.
Well, let's see. Luckily, I have a line in my one-man show. It's a slide that's right behind me when I do it. Let's see if I still have it committed to memory. Asperger's syndrome, a developmental disorder related to autism and characterized by higher than average intellectual ability, coupled with impaired social skills and restrictive, repetitive patterns of interests and activities.
Wow. Yeah.
That is the textbook definition of Asperger's.
That was great. I couldn't have actually asked for a more concise definition. Well, let's talk about when you got started. When the that juice that we get from the theater, that buzz that we chase. When did you first feel that and know you wanted some more of that?
Well, it was a slow climb to get to this one-man show. Growing up, I did community theater, church productions, school productions. If there was ever a open call audition for something that was shooting in Pennsylvania, I was there. I had wanted to be an actor ever since I was a kid.
You knew?
I knew.
Yeah.
It was a movie called The Little Rascals that came out in 1994 that made me want to be an actor.
That was it.
I looked at that movie and I thought, wow, that looks like so much fun. But then if you go back a little earlier in my life, actually, if it wasn't for animated Disney movies, I wouldn't be talking.
No kidding.
Because there was a period where I was 3 years old, and I reenact this in the beginning of my show. You asked me any question when I was 3 years old, and all I could say was Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty.
Wow.
That was all I could say. That's all I had. I was a very late talker, and there was a period in 3 years old where that was all I could say if anybody asked me anything.
Did you kind of have it like stored up in your head almost, but you just weren't letting it out? And you kind of, did you have dialogue in your head?
Well, I had this thing called echolalia where I could repeat things. I couldn't understand it, but I could repeat it. And my mom was a really big fan of the soap opera All My Children. So when I was 4, she had the opening credits to All My Children playing, and it was a book that would open up with all these pictures of the characters, and my mom would teach me every single one of them. And I always got excited for the biggest picture, Susan Lucci, and I'd always go, Erica! So I would be the most excited for Erica.
As we all were.
I really want Susan Lucci to see my show for that reason.
Well, Susan, if you're out there by some chance listening to this, please check it out. In fact, all of you can check it out on Vimeo. I will put that link on the page. If you go to Man of Conviction podcast under guest links, I will have his stuff there.
So then you fast forward to 2008, I moved here to Los Angeles. I went to college in Thousand Oaks, California Lutheran University. And I joined an acting class, and I did that for 5 years. And then after 5 years, I went to go study improv at the Groundlings. By 2014, I was watching an episode of Oprah's Masterclass that had Whoopi Goldberg in it. Mm-hmm. And Whoopi was talking about how she was having trouble getting jobs as an actor, and she just wanted to work as an actor. So she decided to put together a one-woman show that displayed all the different characters she could do. And then she premiered it in New York, and the first day nobody came, but then after a glowing review came out, Bette Midler was in the audience, and then suddenly it grew, and they were able to extend, and then after they extended, Mike Nichols came, and then Mike Nichols shepherded it right into Broadway, and that began Whoopi's career, because after that she got The Color Purple, and the rest is history.
This is when she would put a towel on her head and be like a little white girl.
Yes.
And yes, I saw that. Yes, she was amazing. That was amazing.
So in 2015, I started to toy around with the idea of doing a one-man show because I could sing, I could act. I was studying at the Groundlings and developing all these little sketch characters, and I thought, well, maybe I can do a one-man show. So then by 2016, after toying around with the idea for a year, I decided to put pen to paper and start doing it. However, I went to go take meetings with a couple of different potential collaborators, and I met this one guy named Mark, and I ended up not working with him because he was charging way too much money. I think it was like $4,000 to do a show with him, and I didn't have that kind of money. But in the middle of the meeting, I told him I had Aspergers, and he was like, stop, wait a minute, you have Aspergers? That's your show. That's your one-man show. That's your story. That needs to be the center of your show because that's a story that audiences are going to want to come and see. And I had this different concept all laid out. I was going to call it my hour-long audition for the Groundlings. And I was just going to sing and do all my different Groundlings sketch characters and talk about how I just wanted to be in the main company at the Groundlings so I could be on Saturday Night Live eventually.
Inspired a bit by Whoopi.
By Whoopi, but then I ended up not working with Mark, but I took his suggestion and I made that the center of my show. And at the time, I was trying to figure out a name for the show. And I had just released this country song and music video called Magic 8 Ball, That's My Life. And my mother said to me, well, why don't you just call it Magic 8 Ball, like your song? And then from that, I was like, okay, Magic 8 Ball, My Life with Aspergers. And that was when I came up with the concept for the Magic 8 Ball and telling the story through a Magic 8 Ball. And then every time I shake the Magic 8 Ball and the audience sees the answer on the screen behind me, we transition into a different part of my life.
Really clever, really great way to just transition. Yeah, I was like, the structure of this is tight. Yeah.
So in 2016, I started writing it for an entire year. I developed it. I had a different director attached named Marianne Davis-Rago, but unfortunately, come 2017, when I decided, okay, I've been working on it for a year, I'm ready to put this up, Marianne became unavailable, so I had asked my two friends, Penny and Crystal Wilson. I initially had asked them to come on as producers because they're local musicians and they have a lot of industry experience when it comes to the music industry. Their niece/daughter is Shanice Wilson, who had that big hit song from the early 90s, I Love Your Smile, that was like #1 in like 20 plus countries. And I had asked them to come on as producers to help me fill the house, because they have a band named Crystal Penny, and every time they do shows, they always get a packed house. So I was hoping they could help me fill my house by bringing their audience.
Sure.
However, I didn't have a director, and the material still needed a lot of work. It was a long script that really needed to be chiseled down, and it really needed to be edited, and they started to help me chisel it down and edit it. And then they just evolved into my directors as well.
Excellent.
And then we had premiered the show with 5 performances in the Hollywood Fringe. And
that's where I saw it.
Yep. And I was also doing a documentary feature film in tandem with that, which is how you and I met.
Right.
And so I premiere it at the Hollywood Fringe. It does 5 shows. The audiences keep growing and building with each show. And then the show gets nominated for 2 awards.
Awesome.
And then by the end of the Fringe Festival, at the award ceremony, the 2017 Hollywood Fringe Awards, it won both of the awards it was nominated for. The Larry Cornwall Award for Musical Excellence, which means a show where music is a pivotal part of the show, but not a musical theater show. And I talk about my American Idol experiences and my singing and auditioning for American Idol multiple times. And then the other award was the Soaring Solo Artist Award for Excellence in Solo Theater, which was given by Jessica Lynn Johnson. And the prize was I got to go and do it at United Solo Fest in 2018 at the White Fire Theater for free.
Oh, great.
And so I kept the momentum going. I didn't want to lose the momentum after that. I got a 3rd award from Hollywood Fringe when I was given the Producer's Encore Award. Matthew Quinn had noticed that my show won 2 awards, and he said, I will put you in one of my theaters.
Oh, great.
So I did it at Asylum and at Studio C in July. So that was the 3rd award, the Producer's Encore Award. So I kept the momentum going by doing it at the North Hollywood Fringe Festival the following fall, in the fall of 2017. I did it at Acme Comedy NoHo for, once again, 5 shows. And I had a reviewer come and review it, and it won its 4th award for Best One-Person Show Comedy.
So great.
So after the Solo Fest was done in January of 2018, I decided to take it to Edinburgh, which was going to be very expensive. I had a producer for hire who I hired to produce my show in Scotland. That way I would have PR, a flyering team, because the thing about Edinburgh is like 3,000 shows come.
Wow.
So you want to try to come with a machine. That way you can get audiences and not get lost in a shuffle of shows.
Smart.
And it was going to be expensive. I mean, without food and airfare, we were looking at $13,000.
Oh, my.
Because I have to get a flat, rent the theater, producer for hire. He has his fees, flyers, all kinds of stuff I had to pay for. And I had started an Indiegogo campaign to try to raise money. So, but by that point, with the documentary feature, all the directors came and went. I was ready to let it go and not do it. But then a friend of mine who I had just met at that point, her name is Juliana Brudek. We had met through mutual friends. I had told her about everything I was doing, and we became Facebook friends. And she was like, hey, do you have somebody documenting you on this? I would love to document this. And so right away, she became my director.
Great.
And then Penny and Crystal, who were the directors for my one-man show, came on as producers for the feature film. And yeah, Jules followed me. She came with me from LA to Virginia, my first home state. I was born in Connecticut, but my family had moved to Virginia when I was almost 2 years old. So by the time I could start remembering things, we were in Virginia.
Sure.
And I did my one-man show at the Westmoreland Players Theater, which was the first theater I had ever done a show on stage when I was a kid. It was a production of Oliver, and I was in the ensemble. So it was like a nice full circle moment. And I was doing it in the summer of 2018, which was the 18-year anniversary of my family leaving Virginia for Pennsylvania in 2000. Okay. And I was a little scared to do it in Virginia just because I'm a queer Democrat who was getting ready to do the show in front of a bunch of conservative Republicans.
Yeah.
So I was a little nervous about that, but I wanted to do it for that reason of, look, I know right now we're in very divided times right now, and we got to at least get back to the point of talking to one another.
That would be nice.
Otherwise, nothing's going to get better, and we're not going to heal as a nation, or it's going to take a really long time for us to heal as a nation.
Agreed.
And I had a Republican congressman's wife, daughter, and granddaughter in my audience, and I talk very openly in the show about falling in love with a guy. I talk very openly in the show about how, it broke my heart as a man on the autism spectrum that we had a presidential candidate who openly mocked a disabled reporter and still got elected. And then his pick for Secretary of Education had no qualifications, knew nothing about the public school system, or this federal law that protects students with disabilities. I was one of them. I went to a public high school. I wouldn't be in the position where I am if it wasn't for those special education and learning support teachers I had over the years in a public school in Pennsylvania, because we went to a private school in Virginia, my sister and me, but then we went to public school when we moved to Virginia because I personally didn't want to go to another private school, because Virginia's private school, Woodland Academy, it was kind of like a mixed bag. Like, I was very tight-knit with my class, but, the kids in the other classes, I mean, no kid is immune to bullying and teasing and taunting, and I definitely went through my fair share of that growing up. So
yeah, it's rough.
Not everybody survives it, unfortunately.
I know.
And I feel blessed to be one of the ones that did, but it wasn't easy.
Yeah. Kids can be so friggin' mean. I've never understood that, but.
And when I look at today's society with social media, thank God I didn't go to school when social media was a thing.
Yeah.
I was the last generation before social media blew up. I mean, when I was in high school, we had MySpace, which is no longer a thing, really. And Facebook was just starting.
Sure.
When I was leaving high school. And I actually made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to get a Facebook until I moved away to California, because I didn't want to get caught up in the drama of it all when I was in high school.
Did you manage to do that?
Yeah. I went to community college for a year. I still didn't have a Facebook. When I went to California Lutheran University in the fall, that was when I finally got my Facebook.
The friends list started to grow?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have about like over 2,000 at this point.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing about being an actor in Los Angeles. You meet so many people.
Very recently, I don't know, maybe just 3 weeks ago or so, you were on NCIS.
Correct. It was my first guest starring role. I had never even had a TV job before, so I consider myself very lucky that I didn't have to, I didn't start with a co-star. I started with a guest star right off the bat.
That's so great.
Because a lot of people pay their dues with co-stars and then graduate to guest star, and I just went right to guest star.
Go to the webpage, manofconvictionpodcast.com. Go to under guest links and look for George Steeves' page, and there will be a YouTube link to his NCIS appearance.
Yeah, one of my scenes is on YouTube.
So what are some future projects? Do you have anything cooking?
Well, before I did NCIS in October, I did an independent feature film called Penciltown, which was an absolutely wonderful experience. Jay Silverman was our director, and I got to work opposite William Moseley, who is Peter in the Chronicles of Narnia movies.
Sure.
And I even got my friend Paul Dooley to play my grandfather in the movie.
Oh, wow. So can people see that now? Is it out yet?
Well, it's still in post-production, and I'm not sure what the plan is for Jay. I'm not sure if he's going to submit it to film festivals. I'm not sure if he's just going to try to sell it on his own without the festival circuit.
Right.
And the documentary is still in post-production. I mean, we're just trying to figure out the structure of everything. We have a cut. We have an editor named Daniela who's been wonderful. And we have a trailer that's not officially out, but Jules, my director, sent it to me, and I love it. It's called My Life with Aspergers. And after Virginia, Jules came with me to Pennsylvania to shoot some footage. And then she came with me to Scotland for a week to shoot me in Edinburgh doing the show. And then she shot me in New York City doing my one-man show in the Big Apple.
Fantastic.
So we're just trying to figure out the structure of the documentary She actually called me just this week to pitch me an idea that she had that would go a little out of chronological order. But the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea, which she was thinking about making Virginia the climax, even though Virginia happened before Edinburgh.
Yeah, people won't necessarily know that.
Right. And she wanted to make Virginia the climax just because out of all the performances I did, LA, New York, Scotland, the one I was most terrified of was Virginia because I knew I would be in an audience of people who did vote for Donald Trump and people who are members of the Republican Party. I mean, in LA and New York, you're pretty much in a safe space because a lot of people in Los Angeles and a lot of people in New York, most, are not fond of the current president.
Right.
And people in Scotland aren't so crazy about him either. I mean, every other show in Scotland when I went during the summer of 2008 was Trumped, or Trump the Musical. A lot of Trump satire shows.
Yeah.
I couldn't watch any of them. I was like, no, I'm an American. I already live this every day. I do not need to watch a satire show to be reminded.
My wife can't even listen to his voice. She just has to leave the room or just put headphones and she can't.
The only time I can listen is when it's in moderation with Colbert or Seth Meyers.
Totally.
Or The View or Trevor Noah or Samantha Bee or John Oliver or Bill Maher. That's the only time I can listen to his voices when it's in moderation through clips.
Let me ask you, if I might, about your Asperger's and your abilities, like, because there are some things that you can do. Probably, are you good at math?
No. Math was my weakest subject in school. You see, here's the thing about Asperger's. It depends on what you're interested in.
Right.
If you're interested in math, you're going to be a genius at math. If you're interested in science, you're going to be a genius at science. Mine was music, movies, and television. I could memorize facts. I could memorize years if it came to a topic that I liked. When I was younger, when I was a child, it was all about cars. I could look at a car and tell you the make, the model, the year, everything about that car.
That's cool. That's very cool.
And then, but when I got older, it shifted to music, movies, and television. Like the way I used to organize my CDs, they would all be alphabetized by the artist and in chronological order of when they came out.
Okay.
So for the Weezer albums, there were 4 of them when I was in high school. So the Blue Album came out in 1994. Pinkerton came out in 1996. Green Album came out in 2001. Maladroit came out in 2002. So they would be in complete order, in chronological order of when they were released.
So as far as TV and music and pop culture stuff,
Yes.
I guess if those categories came up in Jeopardy,
I would dominate.
You're nailing them. Wow, that's very
Absolutely.
Yeah. When it comes to geography and world capitals, that excites me. And at one point, I could name every world capital. Like you could name a country, and I could name that fast. I'm probably now at maybe 85% accuracy right now. There's some island countries and some like the stands like Tajikistan and Kazakhstan.
I was like that with the United States geography when I was in 2nd grade, and my mom actually kept this in my stuff over the years. With my report cards, because one time in 2nd grade there was this map of the United States on the back of the book. Not book, but it was like a magazine thing we were given in class, like one of those scholastic educational magazines they used to give you in the 90s.
Sure.
And it was a blank map of the United States, and I filled in every single state with the name
Oh, that's great.
of the state when I was in 2nd grade.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so I had that geography interest too when it came to, like, it didn't venture much out of the United States, but, you know.
The human mind fascinates me, and
Asperger's is very Montessori.
Montessori.
It's like a giant Montessori school in the world where everybody has their own specific interests and their own specific topics. And that's how, I mean, I never went to a Montessori school, but I was recommended by child psychologists when I was getting diagnosed when I was in the 5th grade that I would do well in a Montessori school just because I already had such an interest in music and movies, and I would have done well in a Montessori school apparently. But I had just decided I wanted to give public school a try. But yeah, it's Montessori when it comes to the world of Asperger's, just because everybody has their own specific set of interests and things that they are passionate about. After the 2016 election, obviously, I became much more passionate about politics because I regretted not being as informed as I was.
So you overcompensated.
Yes.
I bet you could.
I mean, I regret. I mean, I voted in the 2008 and 2012 elections both times for Obama, but then after that, I would just kind of fall asleep at the wheel, and I didn't really pay attention to the news or even to the comedians telling the news like Jon Stewart or Colbert or Bill Maher.
Jay Leno.
Was Jay Leno political? I don't remember him being so. I mean, he was during the 90s with the whole Monica Lewinsky thing, but I don't remember him really venturing outside of that.
No, he always rode the line. Like, a winning night for him is when he got a complaint letter from the left and the right.
You know, look, David Letterman, I will always revere people who have had that position and have had it for a very long time. Jay had it for a long time. David had it for a long time. Conan O'Brien's still going.
Yes, he is.
So, I mean, that's not an easy field, and it's very competitive.
Super competitive.
So, I revere anybody who's had longevity in that, because not everybody does.
I think Jay was like around 22 years he did that.
And then before that, it was Johnny Carson. So I will always revere anybody who sustains in that field.
For sure.
I feel like it's a little more competitive now in daytime television than it is at nighttime. I feel like if you get one of the slots in nighttime, you're steady if your ratings are good. Daytime, it's a lot harder to launch a daytime talk show now because, you know, people don't stay at home anymore and everybody records everything now. So, I mean, I watch The View every day, so daytime TV is something I've gotten more fascinated with and how that world works, because The View had struggles with a never-ending, rotating game of musical chairs when it came to guest hosts after Barbara Walters left. So,
my current guy I'm working with now on Ross Matthews. You know,
I know him.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know who he is.
Yeah. He did he guest hosted there a while back.
Yeah, the View's had a pretty good footing for the last couple of years. I mean, Whoopi's always been there, and they brought Joy Behar back, which I think was the best move.
I love Joy.
I do too, and I think it was a big mistake to let her go. I'm glad they brought her back. I mean, they got rid of her and Elizabeth Hasselbeck the same year, and they brought in Jenny McCarthy to try to make it less political, but then the ratings sunk when Jenny came on. Not because Jenny did anything wrong, it's just they stopped doing politics, and that's what The View became known for. And the problem was, yeah, you could try to go back to what you were before Rosie O'Donnell came on the show, because she was the one that really made that show news-driven.
Sure.
But then the problem is we already have The Talk. The Talk is like the alternative for people that don't want political stuff. So don't try to be The Talk. You were before The Talk. So I'm glad that they brought Joy back, and now they have Meghan McCain and Abby Huntsman on there, so they have good conservative counterparts. That way it's not just accused of being a completely liberal show, because you have a Republican on there, and Abby's more of a moderate conservative type. She's not as conservative as Meghan. She's more of a moderate. And then you have Sunny Hostin, who is like the new Star Jones, because she used to be a prosecutor. So, I mean, Ana Navarro comes in every Friday. So they've found some good footing in the last couple of years with consistency, because season 18, that was like musical chairs.
Wow.
Because they brought Rosie O'Donnell back, but then that didn't work out because her and Whoopi didn't get along with each other. So, I mean, they had Rosie Perez and Nicole Wallace, but they both left at the end of season 18. So it was like musical chairs for a while.
Let's focus in on the Whoopi-Rosie drama.
Oh, yeah.
Give me the breakdown, just because I didn't follow it, and I do like that stuff, so please.
I read Ladies Who Punch, which was a book that a journalist put out, which is about all the behind-the-scenes drama of The View.
Uh-huh.
Very juicy. I read it in one day.
Yeah, Ladies Who Punch.
Yeah, Ladies Who Punch, behind the scenes of The View. And it gives you the whole backstory of the 20 years on that show.
Wow.
In one giant book. And like I said, I read it in a day. I'm consumed with that stuff. So The View was going, it was going for 9 seasons. Star Jones got a lot of flack in season 8 because she was really hawking her wedding and products and, really promoting her wedding on The View and products and all that stuff. So
people had it with that.
Yeah. So season 9, at the end of season 9, They decide to let Star Jones go. Meredith Vieira gets a job at the Today Show to co-anchor with Matt. They try to get Meredith to stay because she was a staple on the show, but the Today Show NBC was offering her more money, so she went to that. And so they still had Elizabeth Hasselbeck there. They still had Joy. They still had Barbara, but they had 2 seats they needed to fill. They only filled 1 for season 10, and that was Rosie O'Donnell. Rosie comes in, completely makes over the show. It's a whole new set. She's the new moderator. She makes the show more news-driven. This was at the time of the Bush administration and the war in Iraq. And, Rosie's very liberal, obviously, and Elizabeth was very conservative. So obviously they would get into huge fights because Elizabeth would defend President Bush and the war in Iraq and try to justify why we needed the war. And then, of course, whenever abortion came up, of course, Elizabeth was the pro-life and Rosie was the pro-choice. And these arguments, would eventually the lines, they were friends at first, Rosie and Elizabeth, but then the lines got so blurred and it just started to get personal between the two of them. It just bled into the personal part. And the problem was the ratings went up when Rosie O'Donnell was on the show because she already had her own successful talk show, the Rosie O'Donnell Show from the 90s and early 2000s. And everybody was thrilled that Rosie was back on daytime TV. So, of course, the ratings had a huge surge when Rosie came on. But the problem was, behind the scenes, the problem with Rosie O'Donnell, and I love Rosie. Rosie, if you're listening, I love you. I respect you. I get where you're coming from. The problem with Rosie is Rosie's used to being the leader. Rosie is used to getting her way.
The alpha female, if you will.
Yes. So when Rosie came on the show, she wanted to be the one in charge, even though this show is Barbara Walters' creation.
Right.
And she was the one that really came in and took charge. And Bill Getty was another right-winged Republican who really pushed for Elizabeth Hasselbeck to get on the show a couple of years earlier. He wanted a Republican voice desperately. So, of course, Bill Getty and Rosie O'Donnell didn't get along with each other. There was tension between Rosie and Barbara behind the scenes where there was big arguments. I mean, there was one point where this is where Donald Trump actually comes in. That's how the whole feud started, was because Rosie made fun of Donald Trump's hair on the show. This was when he was doing the whole Miss USA thing.
Yeah.
And Tara, I think that was her name, was out drinking and dancing and, doing stuff. And they thought, should she retain her crown or not?
Right.
And Rosie came, I was like, this guy annoys me on a multitude of levels. Married the first wife, had an affair. Married the second wife, had an affair. And he's the moral compass for 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
and then did the flip the hair when everybody deserves a second chance and I'm going to give her a second chance. Donald, sit on it and spin. Uh-huh. And Barbara wasn't there that day when she did that stuff. And so this turned into a big war between Rosie and Donald. And the problem with Barbara was in an awkward position because Donald was one of Barbara's regulars when it came to interviews.
Right.
And he was constantly on The View before Rosie came on. And he was constantly interviewed by Barbara. So this put Barbara in an awkward position and she didn't take Rosie's side on it.
Right.
So this led to a big fight between Rosie and Barbara backstage. And from what I had heard in the book, Rosie was like, this is why Jackie can't stand you, which is Barbara's adopted daughter.
Ooh.
So, yeah.
Got really personal.
Yeah, she went for the jugular. But because ABC was so happy with the ratings, they wanted to keep Rosie on. However, it got so bad to the point where Barbara Walters and Bill Getty both went to ABC and said, if you renew Rosie's contract,
we're both quitting.
We're not coming back. We are leaving the show.
Wow.
So then luckily, fate kicked in on the fateful day when Rosie and Elizabeth had that big blowout fight and Rosie stormed off the set. She came back into the rest of her segments, but she stormed off the set after that fight where they weren't going to commercial. And Joy Behar was like, what is this, PBS? Why aren't we going to commercial? And
And Bill's like,
and
don't
then-
go to commercial.
and
Don't
then-
go to commercial.
And then they had the whole split screen thing between Rosie and Elizabeth where you're seeing the fight on the split screen. And Rosie was like, I know how a split screen works. It doesn't happen without practice. They set that up. She felt like they set it up. The split screen fight between her and Elizabeth.
Wow.
So she felt like it was a betrayal and they had set up that fight to happen. So Rosie leaves the show. Whoopi Goldberg comes in. You know, the show continues on and they get their footing again because not only did they get Whoopi, but they got Sherry Shepherd. Joy was still there. Elizabeth was still there. Barbara was still there. And that went on for 5 years. 2008, 2009, 2010, 2012. That went on for 5 years. And that was a good, steady ship. Now, here's the thing, though. The Whoopi ratings were good. They were consistent. They never got Rosie numbers. They never got them. So then, by the end of 2013, they decide, we're not going to go political anymore. Bye, Elizabeth. Bye, Joy. Joy's okay with it. Elizabeth, Barbara was friends with Roger Ailes, so Barbara called Roger Ailes and begged him to hire her on Fox and Friends so she would have another job.
Wow.
And so then they bring in, once again, like Rosie, they don't bring in two people to replace, they just bring in one. They bring in Jenny McCarthy. Sherry's still there, Whoopi's still there, Barbara's still there. The show starts to slide downhill just because they stop talking about politics. And then so by the end of the year, Barbara retires, Jenny leaves, Sherry leaves. I think Jenny was let go, Sherry was let go, and they even let Barbara go. Barbara was getting older, and Jenny McCarthy revealed in the book in her interview that, you know, Barbara forgot who I was when we were taping, and I passed it off as a joke.
Wow.
She looked at me like, who are you?
Wow.
So Barbara was getting up
Like,
there.
are you a guest on the show? Like, wow.
So they kind of nudged Barbara out. So then Rosie O'Donnell, for the first time in 2014, 7 years, came on the show. And that got the View's highest ratings for that season. So then they come up with the idea of, okay, Barbara's about to leave. So are Sherry and Jenny. Let's get Rosie O'Donnell back. The only problem is Whoopi's not going anywhere. So they bring in Rosie O'Donnell to sit in Barbara's chair, thinking that, okay, this is going to save the show.
Right.
And then they still had 3 other seats to fill. They only filled 2. They got Nicole Wallace from MSNBC to be the Republican voice. And then they got Rosie Perez, the first Latina co-host hire.
Uh-huh.
Problem is, right away, I mean, the ratings were great for the first day when Rosie O'Donnell was back. However, here's the problem. Once again, Rosie tried to take over and she tried to lift Whoopi up and make Whoopi better, but it's like, give Whoopi her space. Don't try to lift her up and make her better. And that's the problem with Rosie, is she thinks she's helping by lifting up people. We're going to lift up during her first tenure on the show. We're going to lift up Barbara. We're going to make the show better. But it's like, no, leave Barbara alone. You just focus on your job and let everybody else do theirs. But she wants to micromanage. So Whoopi wasn't having it, of course. And then it just, that's why Rosie quit the show halfway through, because she said it was because of stress, but it was just because her and Whoopi weren't getting along, and she was trying to get her way, and she wasn't getting her way. And then by the end of that season, Nicole Wallace had left, Rosie Perez had left, they brought in Raven Simone, they brought in Michelle Collins, but then, you know, it was nonstop musical chairs for season 19, and then season 20 they finally had like a deep bench with 8 co-hosts.
Wow.
And then 2 of them left, and then they had 6 for season 21 and 22, and they've had a pretty good footing ever since. But yeah, season 19 after season 18, which is considered the worst season of the show by the author of the book, season 19 was like, okay, we got to get back to consistency, because season 18 and season 17 with everybody coming and going was like musical chairs.
Well, that was a very concise explainer. I feel I know a lot more, and man, I can tell. Not only do you know a lot about it, but you need to like weasel your way. You could probably fit right in there, dude.
Oh, I would. I mean, I would love to. I mean, look, I'm surprised Lifetime hasn't optioned the book yet to make a movie. I mean, this would make a great movie.
Yeah, it would.
Maybe not for the big screen, but who knows? If Bombshell does really well, maybe this could do really well in the big screen for award season. But if not, Lifetime I'm sure would be happy to option his book and do it. Because, I mean, there's just so many more stories. I mean, from the years of the 90s, the one that stood out to me was when they were shooting episodes in Disney World and Star Jones wanted a hotel room with a view of the ocean. However, she didn't realize that Disney World is very inland and you can't see the ocean because
no matter how high you are in the...
So she wanted a room with a view of the ocean, but it's like, Star, we're inland, we're not near any ocean.
Look out that window and I assure you there is ocean in that direction. You can't see it, but it's in that direction.
So there's so many stories from that time, and he was able to interview everybody except for Elizabeth Hasselbeck.
She refused.
And yeah, Elizabeth Hasselbeck didn't want to do it, and Whoopi was going to do it initially, but then when she had upped her contract with the View, she got cold feet. So
she realized she didn't want to piss anybody off.
And I love Whoopi Goldberg too, but Whoopi has her complexities too. Jenny McCarthy had said stories about how, Barbara was getting ready to retire, and she desperately wanted to moderate the show for like her final couple of weeks on the show. She wanted to be the moderator herself. Whoopi wouldn't budge.
Wow.
So, I mean, Whoopi has complexities too. I mean, Whoopi comes in and wants to do her job, and that's her job, is to moderate, and she would not budge or let Barbara have it for the last couple of weeks on the show.
That's unfortunate.
So, I mean, I think the problem is Whoopi and Rosie are both amazing people, but they have their complexities too, and I think putting them together was just a big mistake. And she didn't call it out immediately, but Joy Behar was like, oh, I knew it wasn't going to work. Because I know the big personality that Whoopi is, and I know the big personality that Rosie is, and I just knew together it wasn't going to work. And you could see the tension on camera. It was just really uncomfortable to watch. And I think that's why people stopped watching, because it was really uncomfortable to watch. And the beauty about YouTube is it's all still on there.
Right.
The Whoopi and Rosie fights are still on there. The Elizabeth and Rosie fights are still on there. I mean, I've gotten better, obviously. For a while, it was just pop culture, Hollywood, music, movies, television. That's all I would ever talk about. But obviously, after the 2016 election, and I regretted not voting Democrat in the 2010 or the 2014 midterms, because that's how the Republicans snuck back in under 8 years of Obama.
Yep.
I regretted not staying engaged. So after 2016, I made a promise to myself where it's like, okay, I'm voting in every election for the rest of my life here on out. Local elections, midterms, I'm voting for everything, not just presidential or presidential primaries.
Yeah.
And so I made sure to vote in the 2018 midterms and did everything I could to help the blue wave happen. And yeah, it wasn't quite a blue wave. Bill Maher said it beautifully. The red areas got redder and the blue areas got bluer.
Yeah.
We are evolving, as he said beautifully, we are evolving into two separate countries.
It's true.
And obviously, I have my favorite for 2020 for the primary season. I've met her. I love her. I am definitely casting my vote for Elizabeth Warren. I voted for Bernie in the 2016 primary because I liked Bernie Sanders better than Hillary Clinton. However, the minute Hillary Clinton got it, I didn't put up a fight. And I was like, okay, she wasn't my first choice, but I would much rather have Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. And unfortunately, and it breaks my heart that sadly the people who hated Hillary and loathed her refused to see that she was the better choice because it wasn't Bernie Sanders, and
maybe they didn't vote or something,
or they voted third party, and it's like, and I get nervous about that with the 2020 election because already I have friends of my own that are hardcore Bernie or bust people where they're like, it has to be Bernie, and if it's not Bernie, and it's like, okay, did we not learn the lesson from last time?
Right.
You know.
Well, if anything, I think we should all probably start taking Russian lessons, ultimately. It's coming, dude.
I mean, Bill Maher asks his guests this every week. Do you think if he gets defeated in 2020, do you think he will leave the White House willingly?
Oh, no. AG Barr is going to do something. He's going to say, I don't think this is a legitimate thing. We're going to...
Of course.
Oh, no. Barr is going to step in and not certify or come up with some bullshit.
Did you hear about what Linda Ronstadt said to Barr to his face?
No.
Linda Ronstadt was getting honored with it's Kennedy Center. Is it Kennedy Center honors or
Yeah.
She was getting honored, and she said I'm not sure if Barr was in the room or not, but she had a direct message to Barr saying, stop enabling Trump.
Great, because that's exactly what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and the thing is, everything has just gotten too polarized and too politicized, whether it's the Supreme Court or Attorney General. You are supposed to serve the country, not the president. And I mean, yes, you serve at the president's pleasure, but you don't put party over, or you don't put president over country.
Right.
And so I hope Warren wins the primary. That's who I love. That's who I'm voting for. But look, if it's Joe Biden, if it's Bernie Sanders, if it's Michael Bloomberg, I don't care who it is. To quote Joy Behar, vote blue no matter who.
Yeah, I mean, even Buttigieg. I like Buttigieg. He's making a steady climb. If you look into, he's a good guy. He's a little center.
Unfortunately, the Bernie people already have fault with him, though, because he took money from billionaire and millionaire donors.
Yeah, well, if you gotta play this game, you might as well.
And because Bernie is the holier than thou candidate who's not taking billionaires' money or corporate money, they're all going with him. And
he won't be beholden to anybody. There won't be anybody in his pocket if he gets there. That is the pure thing.
Right. But if he doesn't, then it's like, okay, hopefully we learned the lesson from last time.
Yeah.
Let's please not let Donald Trump walk into 4 more years of this.
Cheat his way into another. Oh man.
Which he was about to do with Ukraine, which is why. And look, I'm kind of torn on impeachment because...
Same.
Well, here's the thing. The Senate's not going to convict.
Unless the trial is so compelling and unless there are some coat room wink, wink, nudge, nudge says, listen, we're going to get rid of this guy. Maybe. I mean, I'm holding out hope. I'm such an optimist that I think, oh, come on, of course they're going to realize.
I have zero faith in Mitch McConnell.
Oh.
He is there was an op-ed that came out that said, Mitch McConnell, the man who broke America. And that's exactly what he did.
He's awful.
It started when he stole a Supreme Court seat from Obama in his final year.
Merrick Garland didn't even get a shot.
Yeah.
It was infuriating. And then, of course, when Obama gets in, he says,
we're doing everything in our power to make him a one-term president.
Yeah.
We're not helping him.
Yeah.
And then...
Still got stuff done.
And then, guess what? The House, under Nancy Pelosi's leadership, has like hundreds of bipartisan bills.
Yep.
And the Senate is shut down and will not do anything because of this impeachment. That is my problem. And I loved when Judge Judy came on Bill Maher and said, look, we're in a domestic dispute right now as a country because you have half the people who adore this president and then you have the other half who can't stand him. And because of that, nothing is getting done.
Yeah.
Bridges aren't getting built.
Yep.
Roads aren't getting fixed. Our infrastructure, nothing is getting done. And then she made the push for Michael Bloomberg, of course, because he was mayor of New York City and was wonderful. And
yeah, maybe. He's got a big war chest and all that.
The only baggage that I feel like Bloomberg has, which he's already apologized for, is the stop and frisk. However, I was giving an Uber ride today to a guy who brought up a very good point, saying, he gave $800 million of his own money to New York City to help things out. So I really wish that the Bernie people would stop vilifying all billionaires as the problem and as the enemy, because also, once again, as I cite these people a lot because I watch them every week or every day. Bill Maher said this, the Kennedys were rich. Yep. So let's not vilify and say all billionaires are evil.
Yep.
I mean, if we're going to go with a billionaire, I'd rather have Bloomberg than Tom Steyer.
Yeah, I don't know much about him at all.
Waltzed right in with no qualifications. He hasn't had any public office of any sort. I know we already have a president right now who has, no public office experience prior to presidency, but let's not make that the standard.
I know.
And but we'll see. I mean, this is going to be the most unpredictable election of our lifetime. And as I've said to my friends who are hardcore Bernie or bust people, look, the voters are going to decide. And luckily, there's no super delegates all lined up for one particular candidate like last time
Correct.
with Hillary Clinton. But it's going to come down to the voters. Because look, if voters do not want to get kicked off their private health insurance, then Bernie or Elizabeth are not going to emerge as the front runner. Now, I feel like if Elizabeth softens on the Medicare for all and takes a little bit more of a moderate stance to it, which I feel like she's starting to do, she's not as rigid as Bernie because she didn't write the bill. I feel like Elizabeth still has a shot if she moderates a little more on the Medicare for all. But if she doesn't, then neither of them are going to emerge.
Right.
And then it's going to be a moderate, such as a Joe Biden or a Pete Buttigieg, or the dark horse I wouldn't rule out for the 2020 race is Amy Klobuchar.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe not.
Because
something about her, I don't know what it is. I'm not sure what it is.
I get it. She has the baggage with the turnover, and apparently she's difficult to work
and very
for.
mean. Yeah.
But what I will say about Amy Klobuchar is, if the moderates want somebody younger than Joe Biden and with experience and who comes from a red state, a flyover state, as Amy referred to it in one of the debates, a flyover state. So they can't brand her a coastal elitist. And what I do like about Amy Klobuchar is that she sounds like an average everyday American woman who can talk to the everyday people.
Agreed.
And so she might get that appeal to moderates who are not beholden to Democrats or Republicans. Tulsi has some baggage that I don't care about personally, so I'm not a big Tulsi fan. I like some of the stuff she says, but she has taken money from gun lobbyists, and gun control is something I'm very passionate about and something that I feel needs to be done. And unfortunately, because of the NRA, nothing can get done. So as long as the NRA keeps buying out politicians, nothing is going to change.
So true.
So that's my reservation about Tulsi. But, I mean, like I said, whoever gets it, they have my vote and they have my money, even if they're not my first pick.
What would you think of either Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren on the ticket, one vice, one for president, and maybe if they get in, we get Kamala Harris, Attorney General?
Well, Elizabeth already wants Kamala for a VP, possibly. She thinks that
I would love two women to run, and oh man, especially against Trump, that would just be so sweet.
However, here's my problem once again with that, why I'd be nervous. I like Kamala Harris. However, look, I get it. Her track record as Attorney General is not the best.
Is putting people in jail, putting a lot of brown people in jail.
Is truly abhorrent. I get it. I really do. But the thing is that I try to remind people, look, when you're a prosecutor, sometimes you have to follow the law, whether you agree with it or not.
It's true.
And also, I mean, are we not allowed to evolve? Are we not allowed to change?
Of course.
I mean, maybe if she becomes Attorney General of this country, she can rectify all of her wrongs that she did as Attorney General of California. But we'll see. But already I get nervous about her being Elizabeth's VP, because then the Bernie people who would swallow their pride and vote for Elizabeth, I feel like they would bolt. Because the Bernie people, once again, the Bernie people hate Kamala Harris.
Do they?
Yeah, the Bernie people hate Kamala Harris. The only other candidate who Bernie people like is Elizabeth Warren. That is it.
Yeah.
They hate everybody else. They hate Pete. They hate Kamala. They hate Joe Biden. They hate everybody else. I mean, maybe not so much Tulsi, just because Tulsi and Hillary, of course, had their big feud after Hillary thought that Tulsi was being groomed as a Russian asset. And of course, because the Bernie people hate Hillary Clinton, that scored Tulsi some brownie points with Hillary people, so not so much Tulsi.
And Bernie is very old. He's very old.
I mean, this is my problem with both Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. I feel like they are both too old to be president of the United States.
Joe Biden?
I feel like both of them are. And my problem with Joe Biden is Joe Biden has already been so wonky in all the Democratic debates. I would be really nervous putting him up against Trump.
Feel the same.
I'm afraid Trump would slaughter him in a debate.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, Joe is smarter than Trump, but Joe's age shows in his debate.
I agree.
And the no malarkey thing.
Malarkey, come on. Yeah.
I mean, I'm ready to do a... Ellen has a segment on her show where she goes, "Oh, straight people." And if I were to ever be a guest host on the show, I would just have all of Joe Biden's quotes and go, "Oh, old people."
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's really going to be the most unpredictable time. As Hillary Clinton said on Howard Stern's interview, we don't know yet because we haven't had any elections yet. There haven't been any votes or caucuses or anything. So we have no idea what's in store.
Yeah, it's exciting times. I tell my children.
It's exciting, but it's nerve-wracking times because if the Democratic Party doesn't unite behind one person,
it's over.
We're screwed.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Meghan McCain said it on The View, and I agree with her, somebody from the other side, but she said it best. Republicans get in line, and Democrats cannibalize each other. And that's exactly what happened in the last election.
Yep.
The Republicans, they didn't like Donald Trump.
But look how in line they are now.
Yeah, they got in line. There was a couple of them that had a conscience, like George Sr., rest in peace. He voted for Hillary Clinton instead of Donald Trump. Colin Powell, one of the few Republicans I really like and have a lot of respect for.
Yep.
He voted for Hillary Clinton. There are some Republicans who did cross over for Hillary Clinton. Ana Navarro did on CNN. But, not enough Republicans crossed over for Hillary Clinton. And Republicans get in line, Democrats cannibalize each other, and that's what happened. Bernie supporters and Hillary supporters cannibalized each other. And even though Bernie did endorse Hillary, it wasn't enough. And look, if I was on Hillary's team, I would have begged Hillary Clinton to make Bernie the VP. I would have begged her to make him the VP. I felt like if she had made him the VP, that could have saved us. I felt like they could have come together and said, we have decided to put our differences aside and unite for this country to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't take the oath of office.
Yeah, that would have been good. I'd have been all for that, too.
But we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know who Bernie's going to pick as a VP. I wonder if he does get it, if he will go with Warren, because that was the speculation in 2016 that he was going to tap Warren as his VP.
Yep.
But already Warren has stated that she is interested in Kamala Harris. Joe Biden has stated that he is interested in Kamala Harris. We'll see. Another one that one of my friends said would be a vital vice president pick no matter who gets the nomination, Stacey Abrams.
You're right.
One of my friends said no matter who it is, they need to have Stacey Abrams on the VP as a ticket.
Pete Buttigieg, Stacey Abrams.
Wow. And that could help Pete out a lot because, unfortunately, right now, Pete is polling at 0% with black voters.
Yes, he is. And you need black voters.
Yes, you do. Yeah. And that's a little tricky, unfortunately, when it comes to the black community. I used to sing gospel music on the side for a couple of years, and I've been around a lot of black churches and a lot of people in the black community. That's a tricky one, unfortunately, with Pete Buttigieg.
Yes.
I don't want to say a blanket statement and say all black people, obviously, but
sure.
The other issue there is, unfortunately, because the black community is so deeply Baptist and deeply religious, unfortunately, there is still a lot of homophobia in the black community that's rooted in religion.
Yeah. Hopefully that's going to dissipate
I
quickly.
hope so. I've been, like I said, I've spent a lot of time around the black community, and I've been to a lot of black churches. Some of them are progressive, some of them are not.
Right.
So it just, that's gonna depend. I hope so. I hope he can reach black voters, but if he doesn't, he's
doomed.
Or he's gonna need Stacey Abrams as the VP. I mean, whoever gets it, my friend says, whoever gets it, doesn't matter whoever it is, even Bernie Sanders, they have to get Stacey Abrams.
Yeah, she's just kicking her feet up now, just counting like, yeah, she knows. Yeah, she would be great. Oh, man, it was close with her winning the...
Well, I mean, she didn't get it because of Republican gerrymandering
right.
in Georgia. So, and now Georgia's passing that ridiculous abortion law. And now a lot of the liberal film companies are like, okay, if you're going to pass this, we're going.
Right, see you later.
Bye. We're not going to do business with your state if you're going to pass this ridiculous law. And that's another thing that really breaks my heart is that I wonder as a 31-year-old, are some things never going to be a resolve? Because I remember an old clip of The View, actually, where it was 2007, and Barbara Walters was introducing the segment, and she said, "It's 2007, and the topic is still abortion rights." And I was like, God, it's 2019, and the topic is still abortion rights.
Yep.
And then you look at stuff like gun control, and it's like, God, are we ever going to have a resolve with any of this? Or is this going to be what humankind in this country is going to fight about until the end of this planet, which might be sooner rather than later if we don't do something about global warming?
Yeah, the ice cap, Greenland is melting like crazy, and people don't realize that that's, going to create increases in floods all over the world, all over the coastal
areas. And I can't
areas.
imagine what you're going through as a parent of a kid who is going to be here for all of this.
Yeah.
And, if our planet could be doomed in 10 years they're giving us now? 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? I mean...
Wow, really?
Well, yeah, they're saying if we don't fix this, right now, we don't have much time left. And what really infuriates me about the Republicans is that a lot of them are older. So their point of view is, well, we're not going to be around for it. We're going to be dead in the ground, so we don't care, basically.
Do you think... I'd like to think it's true, but do you think if we somehow were to just stop using, gasoline engines overnight and everybody were to be in electric cars... how long do you think it would take? And is that really what the problem is? And can we fix it?
This is where I really wish I was a scientist and knew more about this stuff, because I wish I had the answers of what could fix everything. But I'm certainly going to trust all of the scientists
of course.
who are saying, we got to do something.
And we're causing it. And it's human caused. That's sometimes the right will say things like, okay, yes, things are happening and the temperatures are increasing, but I don't believe we're the cause of it. And that's where it's like, no, we are the cause of it. And then my question is, what can we do?
Did you see the movie First Reformed with Ethan Hawke?
First Reformed, no.
Ethan Hawke plays a priest, and it's a very powerful film. Got a couple of Oscar nominations, but not a lot. But it's a very powerful film, and it basically says, if this planet is supposed to be God's creation, which is what people of the Christian religious faith are taught to believe, why are we polluting it and destroying it if this is supposed to be God's great creation? And that's why people are shocked. Or why are more religious people on the right enthusiastic about global warming or climate change if this is supposed to be God's great creation?
Maybe because they think that, God is almighty and wouldn't let this happen. It's happening for a reason, and that he'll save us.
Well, this is why I stopped practicing religion as an adult. I was raised Episcopalian. My father's a retired Episcopal priest, and my mother, who's a lawyer, is deeply religious. She wanted to be an Episcopal priest, but they weren't ordaining women at the time.
Is it not true? My understanding of Episcopalian is it's basically the United States version of the Anglican Church.
How I would describe Episcopalian to people is we're basically diet Catholic. We're basically Catholic light. We're Catholics without the guilt.
And the Anglicans, in their own way, are kind of a light Catholic. They're different.
We have a lot of the same traditions of Catholicism.
Right.
The only thing is Episcopal priests can marry and have children. Otherwise, I wouldn't exist.
Okay.
And we don't do confession.
Right.
We don't do, it's been a day since my last we don't do confession. And we don't have the system with we don't have nuns. And like I said, a priest can, there was a special on Oprah that talked about Catholic priests who ended up falling in love with women. And the end result is always they become Episcopal priests. They leave the Catholic Church and become Episcopal priests. But hey, I would rather have that than what usually happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is so devastating.
Yes.
I mean, I look at that too with Catholic priests and all the molestation, and nobody got arrested or prosecuted.
Unbelievable.
And so, I mean, it's hard because I come from a religious background. My parents are deeply religious, but I've been more open with them in the last couple of years going, I'm sorry, but my beliefs are spiritual. They're not religious. I believe in God. I just don't believe in God the same way they do.
Right.
I see it as more of a one-on-one sort of thing. And I started to see it as like God is everywhere sort of thing.
Yeah, and I something I'd like that this has taken totally a different turn from what we were talking about. It's great.
Oh, it's okay. I'm happy to I'm happy to come around full circle.
Totally. Like, what is his name? Joseph Campbell, who had a big influence on me. He said something about the big difference between Eastern and Western religions is that in the West, the God is on the outside and it's separate from the individual, and in the East, there's the idea that you are a part of God is an Eastern concept, and I love how that's kind of the one real difference you can when you separate them. Anyway, I don't know. I thought about that. So God is everywhere.
And I just feel like organized religion is one of the reasons why we are so divided.
So true.
Because you have the reason why gay rights is still a fight for one of the communities I'm also a part of is because you have people on the religious right saying man and a woman, and it's just
people are coming around pretty fast these days. I mean, I have a 16-year-old. He's gay. We made it very easy for him to just, we had an idea early on, and I created a space for him to fall into and not feel like what he's feeling is wrong or what he's feeling is bad. It was just that he could simply know, oh, okay, he saw Chris Colfer on Glee. On Glee, and was like, am I a little bit like him? And I was like, yeah, a little bit. Yeah, maybe. And in the car when he was like 7 or 8, he's like, am I gay? And I said, you might be. But you'll know, your body will tell you. You get older, you'll know who you like, and it's nothing wrong with it, and it's totally fine. There's all kinds of people in this world, and so
just like the autism spectrum, I see sexuality as a wide spectrum.
For sure.
Because as you learned from my show, I didn't fall in love with my first guy until I was 27 years old. So for me, it's not so much about body parts that I'm attracted to; it's a person.
Right.
And so, I'm very lucky in my case. I mean, my older brother's gay.
Okay.
And so he kind of paved the way.
Sure he did.
And I'm very proud of my father. My father had to do a lot of evolution though.
Yeah, he did.
Because my father is 74 years old, and he did come from Boston, and he did come from that era where you weren't supposed to like black people, fat people, or gay people.
Right.
And then he ends up getting 2 children who are on the LGBTQ spectrum. My father just saw my show this past October, and he didn't know beforehand.
Oh.
We still haven't had a discussion about it. Unfortunately, we're a typical WASP family where sex isn't discussed.
Ever.
We are that kind of waspy family. When I told my mother I wasn't a virgin anymore, she was like, I didn't need to know that. So we are that typical WASP family that doesn't discuss it. So I don't know what the future holds for that. If I end up bringing home a guy to my family, it is what it is. I can't do anything about it.
But he doesn't give any indication that he feels any differently about you. Or has he?
No, he hasn't given me any indication. So I don't know if he's still processing what he heard in my one-man show. I don't know if he's just letting it go. I mean, come on. There were pretty subtle clues at 3 years old when all I'm saying is Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty. I mean, there's subtle clues growing up that I wasn't gonna be straight. So, I mean, and I'm glad that I had my older brother to pave the way. And my brother has seen the show, and even my brother and I haven't discussed it.
Really?
Yeah, I never talked to my brother when I was going through all the things I was going through with the guy I fell in love with, who I referenced in my show. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to call and compare notes. I feel like everybody needs to go through their own individual journey with this.
But obviously, at some point, learned your brother was gay, or maybe
Yes.
you knew at some point, or instinctively, or whatever it was. But
There was a stereotypical TV show called Movie Stars, which was a sitcom on the WB, and it had a gay character as a guest starring role. And he had a lot of the same traits that my brother had. So at 11 years old, I called my brother and asked if he was gay. And he freaked out and didn't know what to do. So he didn't give me a yes or a no answer, but he told me the Matthew Shepard story. So, and then finally in 2001, I told my brother I admired gay people, and then he told me I'm gay because Ellen DeGeneres was coming back after having the turmoil she had from coming out in 1998 when her show got canceled and she ran out of money. But in 2001, she had a new sitcom that was coming out on CBS. She hosted the Emmys to rave reviews. She was making a comeback, and we talked about that. And I jokingly say there's 3 sons in the family. We have it all: gay, straight, and I'm the everything in between. Because my oldest brother is divorced with 2 kids, and he's straight. So we have it all. And then my sister, there's 4 of us, and then we have my sister who's straight and married, and so we have it all. And a lot of people on my dad's side are gay. My cousin Betsy on my dad's side is gay, and my cousin Caitlin on my dad's side is married to a woman. So it's kind of funny how you look at the dynamics between my mom's side and my dad's side of the family.
Interesting.
So, because my mom's side of the family, everybody's straight, and my dad's side of the family is a lot more, LGBTQ. And my cousin is married to a transgendered woman.
Oh, excellent.
She is Rachel now, but she was Richard when they married, and she was in the beginning of her transition when they were married.
You really do have a little bit of everything.
We do.
That's great.
And my dad, I'm very proud of my dad. I mean, he performed. My brother is married to his husband Tony, and he performed the ceremony. It was his first gay wedding.
Oh, that's great. There it is. Oh man.
So I'm very proud of him for that.
For such a waspy dad, I mean, I don't imagine there's.
Who was homophobic in his day. He had a lot of shortcomings that he had to overcome. To this date, he still cannot watch Mike and Molly with my mom, because Mike and Molly is a show about two bigger people, and he still can't watch it.
He doesn't like fat people either. Wow.
I mean, it was a different era, and unfortunately, Boston was known to be a hateful city back then. So,
yeah, I never knew fat people were included in that.
In the same group as gay people and black people.
Wow.
And so, I mean, my dad is probably going to kill me for talking about this, but
Well, it sounds like for such a waspy guy, as you say, this is his way of saying it's okay with him.
Yeah, I mean, my dad is a human being. We are all human beings. At the end of the day, we're going to have our fatal flaws. We're going to have our wonderful traits about us. And I still love my father very much. And my father wrote the kindest review after he saw my show in New York City. Because,
great.
Well, my last show in New York City didn't go very well. It was at the United Solo Festival, and the tickets were $45. I didn't price them. The United Solo Festival people did. And I couldn't get an audience. I only had like 5 people in my audience. And I had no tech person, so I had to do the whole show unplugged with no technical assistance.
Oh, wow.
So
it was a different show.
Yeah. So I reenacted the voiceovers myself.
Okay.
And I did all the songs a cappella. And I still went out there and gave a performance like there was no tomorrow. And my dad wrote on his Facebook, I was very proud of my son. Despite a small audience, he still went out there and gave a show.
Awesome.
Truly a professional actor.
Awesome. That's awesome. That sounds like a ringing endorsement. It really does.
And about the sexuality, I'm just not going to make a big deal about it because it is what it is.
And I imagine you will come bring somebody home at some point, and
Probably. And
like my wife's family is not very affectionate. When I met her, she told me like she barely hugged her father ever. And I thought that's weird, but when I see them, they're affectionate, but it's not.
It's not overly affectionate.
It's not overly affectionate. I wonder, do you hug your father?
Yes, I hug my father. I hug my mother. I hug my siblings. I'm a hugger myself.
Awesome.
My mother told me that when I was younger, I didn't like hugging. That was something I acquired through my social training. Because, I love my mother very much. She was very hands-on when she sensed that something was off with me when I was a toddler. And in Virginia, she did the best she could with the resources she had because my joke in my one-man show is I had Aspergers before it was trendy. And so in my one-man show, I talk about, I was like, look, my mother immediately took me to different therapists, psychiatrists, psychologists, speech therapists. I went to a couple of different social groups. I got a lot of social training, and especially one-on-one from my mom. I mean, she really instilled in me and did everything she could to teach me right from wrong. And, you know, she was very hands-on with me as a parent. And I know that if it wasn't for my mother's love and strength, I wouldn't have survived and thrived, because some parents get an autistic child and they don't know what to do.
Right.
And unfortunately, the child suffers because of that. But because my mom was very stern and very steady and very hands-on, you know, she was going to do everything in her power to make sure that I survived and thrived and got the help that I needed. And luckily, there's still a lot of average everyday people who don't know a lot about the autism scale.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm happy to do my show, because it educates everyday people about what it's like.
Well, let's wrap it up.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming.
I'm glad to be here.
And I really appreciate it. And I wish you great success in the future.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure it's coming your way.
Thank you.
May you continue to thrive.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, George. Thanks for showing up. Next week on the show, I'm going to have Dave Edison, comedian, editor, author, Dave Edison. If you want to check out manofconvictionpodcast.com, that's my website, where you can see all of any clips I reference. They're going to be on there. And email me at manofconvictionpodcast@gmail.com. I would appreciate that. And if you really want to get crazy with it, go to Patreon and sponsor this podcast for $1 a month. That's 25 cents per episode. Come on, people.